Okay, item 1, apologies.
Mr Mayor, we've had apologies from Councillor Farmer, who is on holiday.
Okay. Do other councillors, do we accept that reason? Thank you. Any declarations of interest from the councillors?
I'm on the Play Park Action for Offensive Committee.
I don't know if there's anything on the agenda affecting that tonight, is there?
So, Mr Mayor, later on under exempt, we consider the item.
Oh,
So,
10.1, okay.
So, Mr Mayor, I think that would be a personal non-pecuniary interest.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Right, we now move on to item 3, which is flood management in Harpenden. We're going to get a presentation from Hertfordshire County Council officers on potential new flood measures in Harpenden. That will be on that screen over there, so I suggest people on this side either turn your chairs or move over there so you can see it.
You okay? Yeah. You on? Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us along to your meeting. Excuse me. I'll firstly introduce myself. My name is Andy Hardstaff. And over here, my colleague Kate Cooper, and we're from the Flood Risk Management Team in the Leeds Local Flood Authority. Excuse me, at the County Council. The world I live in, I'm warning now, is full of jargon and acronyms. So if I let a few slip through, please be on my case and let me know, and I'll explain. I'm here today to talk about natural flood management pilot, based on an options report that we've done for Harpenden. But before I go into that, I just need to step a little bit about the introduction to the initiative of the natural flood risk management. As I said, Hertfordshire County Council, with Leeds Local Flood Authority, through the Flood and Water Management Act 2010, we were conferred powers and certain duties to manage local flood risk. So, flooding from surface runoff, such as you see the example here in Harpenden, falls within our remit. We find flood risk very difficult to manage in Hertfordshire. Although the numbers are very big, and part of the difficulty is we're not quite sure what the number is. I know it might make sound as though we don't know what we're doing, but it's very difficult to bring all the science and the modelling together to get a full picture. But I could say something like 30,000 properties across the county are probably at risk from surface water. The issue for us is they're in 1,000 groups of 30 rather than 30 groups of 1,000. If in 30 groups of 1,000, it would be a very simple job to put some very large schemes together to address that flood risk. But because they're in these such small pockets, and 30 is very unusual, we're talking about 2s and 3s and 5s and 6s, it's very difficult to put a scheme together because it has to pass cost-benefit. The benefits essentially are the number of properties where flood risk has been reduced. There's all sorts of complicated formulae I won't go into, but generally if you've got less than 10 properties, things aren't going to be able to be put in place. So we could just sit back, throw our hands up in the air and say we can't do anything, but that's not really the way that myself and my colleagues work. So we've been looking at a number of different ways of doing it. And I'll just touch on three areas tonight. So one is about influencing future development. Another one is what's called property flood resilience, so that's measures at property level. And then what I was going to talk about tonight is natural flood management and extending this into urban areas with something called sustainable drainage. So why do we choose Harpenden? Well, we know Harpenden floods. Doesn't flood that often. More recently it seems to flood very often, but does flood significantly. And the surprising thing, the greatest flood risk is probably on this side of the hill in the High Street, rather than on the other side of the hill with Batford and the River Lee. So we have quite a bit of intelligence about how it floods. These here are properties that are on the database, where we've had records of the property being affected by flooding. The blue lines here show predicted surface water flood flows from modelling. I'll say this is the main one coming down the High Street here. As a little bit of an aside, but I did mention about development. More recently we became a statutory consultee in the development process or major development. So when major development comes forward, the local planning authority consults the team that we're in on the surface water and flood risk implications of that development going forward. It gives us a lot of influence. We don't have a great big budget, there's not a lot of money available, but we can influence how surface water is managed in all these properties here. And yeah, we've probably only been going for about 5 years now in this area of work, and you can see in Harpenden there's already quite significant areas of the settlement that we're working on.
Can I just ask a question, sir?
Yeah.
Is this coming from rainwater as like the sewers get full or something, or is it from like a river?
The surface water flow that we're talking about basically is rain, snow, hail, from when it's fallen out of the sky till it runs over the land until then it enters a river or a sewer.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not a river bursting its back?
No.
Can I just say, can we take questions at the end?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so I said about large schemes not being viable. I just put this as an example. This is some modelling we did, the flood risk before putting a scheme in place and the flood risk after the scheme goes in place. It didn't reduce flood risk to that many properties, probably 20 at most, but I think at today's value this scheme would cost something like £8 million. And the figures just simply don't stack up. It basically would start off with a small pipe at this end of the High Street and end up with something down here that you could use as a set for the Italian job, the drive ministry. It has to be that sort of scale. Yeah. So we've come on to looking at two initiatives now. Just use this as an example. Natural flood management, it's a strand of flood risk that's been taken up nationally. Basically, instead of looking at managing flood risk in a precise location, it's looking more at a catchment-based approach here. This is quite interesting because you can see Harpenden is in two catchments. One for the Lee and this one is actually for the Colne. So the watershed is probably up above the station somewhere. So yeah, there's a natural flood management, and then the other one, which I'll say a bit more off these slides, which is what's called sustainable drainage. There's a number of approaches, and this is certainly particularly applicable to the planning work that we do. So natural flood management looks at trying to reduce flows coming into the settlement. So if we go back to this one, so you can see coming in here, and this one here from Rothamsted Park. So looking at those major flood flows, we looked at the opportunities to do something to try and reduce the flood flow. Now, I'm just doing a very general introduction this evening and taking questions. I won't go into the detail of it. We have spoken with the landowners, or relevant landowners, in outline. There's still a lot more we've got to explore with them in detail. So it wouldn't be really right to put things out there in the public domain until we've discussed things through fully with them. But I'm happy to illustrate the kind of areas that we're looking at and the sorts of things that we're looking at. We've got some examples further on from that. But basically looking at small subtle changes in the landscape which will help retain some water higher up the catchment and slow its flow coming into the settlement. Because basically, the problem with flooding is you get too much water arriving at the same time. If you can spread it out and it can come through at a nice even rate, then you don't have a flood. Or if you can divert it around the settlement, you don't have a flood. But the options to do both of those are really quite limited. So just an example of some of the things that we've looked at in the options report. This one here is for Rothamsted Farm and Rothamsted Park. There's some opportunities up in Rothamsted Farm to store some water up there. The big depression in the park, the dell, there would be some potential to keep some water in there. And then I'll say a bit more about the SUDs later on, you'll see what they are, but what we call SUDs, and the jargon is SUDs retrofit. So basically putting in sustainable drainage measures after rather than as part of development. So some options there. Just outside here on Leighton Road, again, you know, we've got these massive volumes of water. Try and store them wherever we get the opportunity. There's potential in the green space here, and again I'll show you examples so you'll see it's not being necessarily too intrusive, and that would make a worthwhile contribution if we could take lots of little bites of water all the way through the catchment. Here we have the High Street, and again there's some space here. It's quite wide and there's some open space, and there's potential there to store and guide some water. And then higher up, at the top end of the town, the Luton Road area here, colleagues in highways have done some works to improve the highways drainage up there, which will help to an extent, but people must realise that the capacity of gullies to take water is very limited. If you imagine how much water you're talking about, and trying to get into a grid so big which has got slats across as well, they don't take in water that effectively, but they do make a contribution. And there are some other enhancements we're looking at here. Instead of traditional gullies, areas here in our jargon are called grips, and so the water can easily run off the highway at grade level and then into a ditch or whatever at the side. This open area here, if development comes forward, there's potential there for us to influence that development and get the best out of it in terms of managing any flows from that area coming in subsequently. In the absence of development, we'd be talking with the landowner, the farmer, and seeing if there's anything we can do within the scope of them managing the land for its present use. Excuse me. So I don't say something about the SUDs. So in the park, and again, I mean, it needs consultation with the users. So I'm talking very broadly here about the concept. Nothing's fixed. It's just ideas we'd like to explore. So here, this is what's called a swale. So it serves two purposes. There's actually a volume here where it will, in our jargon, store water. And hold it back, and also conveyance, so it will direct it in a given direction. This one here is quite a landscape feature. The next one is a bit more plain vanilla, and if you can imagine just doing something like this in the park, if it's graded properly, it needn't interfere with anything like the mowing, it needn't interfere with the amenity and use, but it just helps nudge water in the right direction. And it's subtle changes like this can make quite a significant difference. And here's one in operation. So it's dry most of the time, and this is after heavy rain. And this one, at least it's in the British Isles. It's I think Dumfries rather than Malmo. All the examples we tend to be abroad. This here is an example of something called a rain garden. So sustainable drainage has a number of tools, if you like, or things available on its palette, and this one here is about directing the water into this area here, so there may be some kind of underground storage, and then the water is available for the trees and the planting above. And again, these can be very effective, particularly in areas like Harpenden, because the water's got nowhere to go. You can get it down the high street as fast as you like, but its end point is Southdown Ponds. And once it gets to Southdown Ponds, it then has to soak into the ground. If the ponds are full and it's not soaking in, it's going to spill over. And so you might solve the problem for the top end of Harpenden, but you're going to create a problem for Southdown potentially. But again, you know, in an urban setting, things like this would be very relevant. And it needn't even be that natural looking. You can have things more architectural, and this is an example of a rain garden. And again, makes a worthwhile contribution to managing runoff, but it's not, you know, overtly a drain or anything like that. So that's really just a very quick introduction. As I've said, we've explored it with some of the landowners. We've met with officers from the Town Council and the District Council. We've also spoken to officers from Highways, the Highway Authority and the Purford League Local Authority, and Thames Water. So the work will carry on in those arenas. What we're intending to do is make the general public more aware of what we're proposing. And at the moment we're suggesting that some kind of public event in September, when we be able to show people the kinds of things that we're thinking for the ways to manage flood risk in the future in Harpenden. As part of that, happy to update yourselves however you'd like. Either, you know, you can have the notes from the officers' meetings, or happy again to come back to meetings like this in 6 months, a year's time, whatever. For you, it's to be aware that, you know, we are meeting with the officers from the Town Council and the District, and also for you to be mindful of the kind of things that we're presenting. I mean, as I hope you can see, they're not incompatible with the townscape in Harpenden, and if there are opportunities come forward, then we need to know about these and make the best use of them. In terms of timescale, I said we're looking to do something with the public in September. We'll be speaking to landowners across that time before we get to September, so they're pretty confident in what we're taking forward. We'd then be looking to do some feasibility in more detail, and that will probably take us through to March 2020. And then if we were looking to put anything into place, it would be 2020 onwards. So nothing's going to happen in the next immediate few months in terms of the potential for anything to be put into place. We don't have any powers to do this. We don't have a great deal of money. So it's a question of being able to raise grant funding, take advantage of things like development, and also we will be working, we will need the full cooperation of the relevant landowners, and if it's incompatible with what they're doing, then we won't be able to take it forward. But the meetings we've had so far have been encouraging. So that's enough from me. I'm slightly over my 50 minutes, I think. So, any questions?
Any questions from councillors? Mary?
You mentioned, I mean, you will be aware that the High Street is a riverbed, and there used to be a stream which ran down it. It started up by Kingsbourne Green.
Yeah.
It ran through the town where the common is now, and there were actually bridges over it, and it kind of went out and just, I think it disappeared on the common. In the 80s, and you didn't really show it there, there was frequent floodings of businesses in the town.
Okay, that's not something we've picked up.
And where the library is now, I vividly remember you had to put your wellies on pretty much every winter. It was Woolworths, and they had special stands which were off the ground so that they could keep everything off the ground, and you'd have to wade through to get to things. Everybody knew that was the shop that flooded.
Okay.
This all stopped when they built the ponds on the common. The ponds on the common were just marshy. They actually dug the ponds out and built them to relieve the flooding. The water runs underground, and it runs under the pub at the bottom of Station Road. You can actually hear it from the cellars. It just runs underneath the cellars. So if you know that and you know where it's going, that you might be able to. And one of the things I've often thought is it would be helpful if you, in effect, if you reinstated the stream, which used to run down through.
Well, in a sense, that's what the proposal of something like a swale would do.
Yeah.
It's to guide flows of water like that. However, from when this was an undeveloped valley to now, there's been lots of changes. And
Well, this was the 80s.
Yeah. But
The stream was there till the 30s.
yeah.
Yeah. The next thing is the impact of 500 houses to the north-west of Harpenden. As you go up the A1081, there's going to be 500 houses built just to add to the end of Harpenden. Now, 40% of that land is expected to be undeveloped. The local plan is going through now. Now is the chance to get policies in about flood management. Before it's an inspection, there is still a chance to update it and to put specific policies in about them having to build in flood management.
I can't comment on that site in particular, but in general, if something like that has only come forward in the last few years, we would have been involved. We would have made recommendations. The situation is it will always result in an improvement. Because what I would have to say to people is that 20 years ago, if something was built, it could well have increased flood risk. Nowadays, there's a lot more awareness, a lot more scrutiny, and you can argue the nuances about it, but generally we're looking for development coming forward to be at the very least flood risk neutral and to actually improve flood risk downstream and not for itself. And there's a whole range of standards it must meet.
I would bear in mind that, I know what the policies are. The policies are fairly neutral. They're not policies designed to improve flooding. They're policies designed to make it flood neutral. There is an opportunity to put in policies which help with the flooding, particularly given that that is a river valley and this is the slope leading down into the river valley. At the moment it's agricultural, so the water is running away on it.
So Mary, on Andy's slide, this was site number 1.
Yeah.
So that's the site that's owned by Legal and General, which we know is going to come forward pretty quickly.
That's going to start, if the plan goes through, they'll start building on that in 2 years' time.
Yeah. So Andy, have you spoken to Legal and General in relation to site number 1? If not, that's obviously something you can consider, but what I'd ask the members just to reflect on is that there was a real problem. Sorry, Andy, can you just go back one slide? Okay. So in the top left-hand corner, in the top left-hand corner there, that red box is where the development of Westminster Fields is now, at the top of Tufnell's Way. And in 14 and 15, there were major flood problems further down. So you can see the you can see the green dots where people were flooded. Now, my sincere hope is that the people who developed Westminster Fields have complied with the SUD's requirements and that problem has gone away now. Now, my aspiration, I think Andy's aspiration, all our aspirations should be that as far as the Legal and General site is concerned, beyond Bloomfield Road, that they apply exactly the same sort of discipline in order to ensure that it cuts off
the flow that's coming down from Cooterdam Lane?
Because I know that sometimes you actually get flooding off of those fields, and there is...
So development could make a positive...
It could make a positive, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
it should make a positive difference rather than just be neutral. Because I've been told that sometimes you can see a stream coming down the side of that field.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can put it forward as statutory consultancy. Ultimately, the decision rests with, the determination rests with Northern, in this case, with the local planning authority.
But I would suggest you put it forward, I think you'll be very open.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain that the side of the team that deal with that have had some discussions with someone about that.
Can you just go forward to where you had the 1 to 6, where your interventions were, or potential interventions, Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we've just been talking about is sort of one and two, really, Mary, yeah.
Andy, can I ask a question? How is this funded at the moment? It's presumably by Herts County Council, and if it moves into some development phase, will it also be funded by you, and is it fully approved at council level?
It's a mixture. So, some of the activity, like the commenting on the planning applications, that's part of the core work of the team as Legal Local Flow Authority, and that's ongoing funding from through the County Council. The NFM project, the pilots and work across the wider county, is actually funded through national and regional funding that we secured through the Thames Regional Flood and Coastal Committee for a 3-year pilot scheme. And in terms of implementation, we're probably about 20 months into since when we sort of started full on, and anticipating it running for another year, 18 months. But it's not going to have a definite cut-off. It's a pilot to get things working. It's likely that things are going to require work further on, but we'll find means of doing that.
And the funding isn't time limited?
The funding for the pilot is time limited, but once we've got the rest out of it, or we've got the most in terms of the feasibility study and such done, it's then a question of finding the funding. I mean, this is a pilot to look at the potential for natural flood management as a way of in the county. It could be. The answer is it's not going to work, but we needed to explore it and find out what the issues are. Alongside this, as the Legal Local Flood Authority, we do lots of investigations of flooding. I mean, on our database, we've probably got something well over 450 properties. So one of the things I said we've explored is this property flood resilience pilot, which is running this year, and that will be for 35 properties. Essex have it running as a self-funding model, and that would be an aspiration for us, if there is the demand, to offer that in future years. However, speaking to colleagues in other Legal Local Flood Authorities, even from a pool of 450 properties that are flooded, even to recruit from there 35 people, they think we're going to struggle. Not that people don't seem to be that keen on doing things at a property level. Sorry, and another part of that. So there's lots of assessments we do as well outside this because of our general role in surface water management. So for all of the districts, by the end of this year, we will have done a comprehensive surface water flood risk assessment for the whole of the district and identified at least, I think we asked for 5 sites in each district to then look to go to the next stage. So we've got quite a portfolio of projects we take forward anyway. It's not just a question of these are the only projects we're doing. When the funds run out, we won't be doing any more projects. It will just add on to the other areas that we work on.
Thank you.
I just wondered whether there's anything planned for the Lower Luton Road, because I think maybe some work has been done on that, but in periods of heavy rain, it still seems to, I'm not quite sure how you define flood, but there seems to be a lot of water on it.
Yeah, well, I suppose one person's flood is another person's big puddle. Sorry, I'm not meaning to be facetious, but, I mean, you can see here, in terms of flooding that's been reported in Harpenden. So for the Lower Luton Road, there's not particularly associated with Lower Luton Road. There's only one property, whereas through the main part of the High Street here, there's all these. So as I said, the most significant flood risk in Harpenden is probably the High Street, rather than from the river in Batford, because if you think about the Batford area, what's the river got? It's got space. You know, the Batford Springs Nature Reserve and the open area down there, it does have space to expand down, you know, going down towards Wheatleston again, it can pull out and flood, whereas here, any water coming in the High Street is very constrained.
The issue at the moment is not going past the nature reserve, it's actually at Westfield Road.
Okay.
It's at that end.
Okay, so let me just clarify. At the end of Westfield Road and at the junction with Bowers Heath Road, we have installed a huge sump in there now. So you don't get the problems at the Westfield Road junction with Luton Road. Where we've still got an issue is Riverford
Yeah, you sometimes get standing water.
and St Martin's Close. Between there you get a lot of standing water. Now I've been promised a jet clean of all the gullies there. The issue is, of course, you're at virtually the same height as the river there, so water draining away from the road very quickly fills up the channels going down to the river. But I've been offered a full sort of jet clean and camera investigation by Riverford Road there, which hopefully will resolve that. If the solution always was going to be then, if we can't resolve that we try and take the water into a gully to the northeast side, away from River Lee. But you'd have to put sumps in the field, whereas we know, of course, there is going to be development there as well.
There's going to be development there as well, and it's the same issue as the development to the northwest.
But the important thing is, you know, there are no purple and green dots on the Lower Luton Road, despite
It's just the colours.
counterintuitive.
Flooding of the roads within colleagues within the highway, there is a little bit of a crossover. They have their own schemes and priorities and caps, 6s and 4s, 2s, 3s and 1s and 5s.
There are some policies in our neighbourhood plan which Mr Chief has just come to advise us about.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, so a meeting wouldn't go by without me plugging the neighbourhood plans, as everyone's getting familiar with now. So we've got ESD 18, which is actually a pretty detailed policy on flood risk, and it puts quite a lot of emphasis on any development, but particularly major developments, to meet a number of quite stringent requirements. I think Councillor Maynard probably that kind of links to your point around having some strong policies on there. So I'm pretty confident that the neighbourhood plan will help ensure that any development puts in place the sorts of things that we would expect it to. Could I just add a couple of other points? Just with reference to officer conversations that I've had so far, I just wanted to feedback a couple of things that myself and Julia, Commons and Greens officer, have put forward in that. First one is to say that the kind of plans that have been put forward are, you know, great on paper, additional measures. However, what we need to make sure is that the existing infrastructure is functioning appropriately. We do know that there are some issues with gullies, particularly the ones that are located very close to the Southdown ponds. And so some of the feedback we've put is it would be a real shame if we focused on these new things without actually making sure that if there are any issues with the current infrastructure, that's not improved. Linking on to the Southdown pond, so that is something that the Town Council owns. We keep a close eye on that as part of our inspection programme. It is functioning well at the moment, so you'll be familiar with there's 2 ponds and then a third kind of spillover area. We do, however, have a bit of an issue with the gully, if that's the right term, ditch I'll call it, going into the ponds. So we are going to be doing some work ourselves as the Town Council to dig that out, because it does get overgrown quite quickly. So we're on top of that as landowners. And I just wanted to make that last point about landowners, of course, from a council perspective, proposals that come forward on our land, we need to come through the necessary committees and the council here.
Any other points?
Excuse me, am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, go on.
Just to introduce myself, my name is David Shannon, and my wife Nick. We live in the cottages just near the Arden Grove end of Southdown Road. We have a keen interest in this subject because we were very badly flooded in the 2015 flood, caused about just in excess of £90,000 worth of damage to our property. So, I mean, I'm very pleased to hear what the gentleman in the far corner just said about Southdown Ponds, because it seems to me that I certainly agree with your comments about how maintaining the gully or the ditch out of the drains, whatever one calls it. But also I'd quite like to ask Andy why it is we can't make more use of the ponds, because there are 3 ponds there. Only the top pond really holds water under normal circumstances. So there must be a huge capacity to take greater volume in the lower 2 ponds, particularly during a flood.
But can I just also, David Covington, now sadly is dead, he wrote a letter in 2016 about the ponds, and you raised them a little bit. So he said the best plan would be to lower them after the big flood. It was devastating for us. I walked round the ponds. The very end one, there was nothing, no debris, no water. The water didn't even reach it. And I've been photographing the drains and the gullies since. Every 6 months I send photographs to Theresa and I send them to you, Carl. And the drain opposite here is totally blocked, growing plants. The gully is a disgrace, I have to say. It's fetid water. There's some kind of dam in there. I've watched the water come out like fountains from the top of here. And I just wondered, how often are they maintained, the drains? Because the one just opposite where all the water is totally blocked, it's growing something. And further up by Sky, up Thomas Twist, that's completely blocked. They always complain of water. And every 6 months I send photographs and just say, please, could you let me know when you're maintaining it? I'm very concerned. Tonight we have a weather warning. We've put flood doors into our house, we've put barriers. We are beside ourselves if we flood again. But we've done everything we can to protect the house. But when the infrastructure is not being maintained, and this letter here will explain what happens to the ponds, they're not enough to take away because it didn't work with that tourism.
The water doesn't actually reach the last pond.
It isn't, there's nothing. It just came back into. So I'd just like to know who you'd like to know.
Well, that's a very interesting comment. I mean, I think what Carl's the town clerk, about maintaining the existing infrastructure, and we'll see what we can do about that.
Thank you very much.
I know, I'll happily spend some time afterwards.
I'd love to spend some time. Thank you.
Okay. Any further points? Okay, well, many thanks for your presentation. Very interesting. Thank you for coming along. We're going to put the air conditioning on for a few minutes. It seems to be warm enough. Okay, we'll resume at item 4, which is Mayor's report of urgent items. I know
No, Mr Mayor, no.
any public questions in accordance with Standing Order 22?
None received.
Not received. Similarly, questions which have previously been submitted by members of the council?
None received.
Not received. So we now move on to item 7, which is minutes of the annual council held on the 13th of May. They've been circulated. We have any comments. Last time,
interface with the 2019, there are no recommendations to council.
Thank you very much. 8.2, Community Services Committee. I was chairing that one at the time. I'd like to present those minutes. The meeting held on the 28th of March 2014, and there are no recommendations to council. Right, now move on to officers' reports. Forward planner received page 9 to 12. Just noting that, does anybody have any comments on this? Or can we just note the Okay. Right, so we can move on to the year-end accounts. There's a report, what's the process, error has occurred on this one on page 2. Accounts development financial year 2019-20, national accounts 2018-20. So that will be set. Thank you, Mr. Butler. Thank you. Okay. Do you want to comment?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's nothing for me to add. Not in the report.
So we've got 5 recommendations. Does anybody have any comments on these, the reserves or any of the other materials?
I just had a question. I know that there was... Oh. Sorry. I know that there was roughly £1 million of reserves, and then there's going to be, when we've spent some of them, £500,000. I just wondered what the optimum level of reserves are. What should we be looking at?
Well, councillor, this is general reserve, specific reserve.
Here we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are two forms of reserve. One set of reserves are money which has been put aside for specific purposes, but not yet spent. So it's held in the reserve until the money is spent. General reserves are money which has not been allocated to any purpose. But we keep a level of reserves of about 7 months of operation. It varies between 6 and 8 months. This is in line with recommendations which have been put forward by various bodies which advise they recommend that parish councils keep that level of reserves just to cover any contingencies that may arise. You can have unexpected emergencies, or you can have unexpected things which are not covered under insurance for, which you have to pay for, and that's for that sort of item. So we keep that balance at about 7 months.
Yeah, and it's considered not prudent to go below that level. Any other comments?
Sorry, can I just confirm that, that we are at that level, because if I look at the reserves, we're at 525, but then I don't know whether you compare it to your gross or your net spending.
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, so the guidelines that we have for our sector, and they are only guidelines, is between 5 and 7 months. So 5 months is around about £560,000. So at the moment we are just below the 5 months, which is a decision the council has taken at various points in order to fund things going on in the community.
You know, we prefer historically to run at a 7 months, because that gives you more scope.
very few things are bound. Question. To do with any comments on this? Members of the Finance Committee or
I would just like to formally thank Miss and the members of the finance team for yet again doing good diligent work over the year, which resulted in a good audit report with very, very little identified. It has to be recognised that many audit reports are page after page after page of things which were found. And this is, for many years, I think one or two items have been identified, which is extremely good in and of itself.
Thank you for that. Any comments from everybody? Okay, I think we're asked to review and approve the internal audit report for 2018. Thank you very much. We come on to a few sort of formal things that we do each year. So next 33, we've got the annual governance statement, which I think council will have to do. Give us some knowledge. Is there anything to add to this?
No, Mr. Mayor, nothing to add.
Okay. Any questions, observations? Approve section 1 of the annual governance of the council, which is setting out the annual governance statement 2018-19. And 2.2, approve that the annual governance statement is signed by the mayor of the town clerk and submitted to the board. Thank you. Next one is 9.5, the annual governance and accountability return from 37. Another one of these formal things that we have to do every year. Anything to add to this?
No, Mr. Mayor, nothing to add.
Any questions or observations? In that case, rather than me reading out the recommendations, 2.1.1 to 2.1.3, can we note all of that lot? So we approve the first one, section 2, approve the annual statement, and note the internal, the annual interim report. Thank you very much. Right, onwards to 9.6, this is a small amendment, page 47. Okay, so all we're doing is approving the petty cash float, increasing that to 500,000 from 300,000. Not a big deal, but I understand this will simplify operations. Do you want to just comment on that?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, essentially the petty cash is used for small expenses that means you don't have to go through kind of finance processes. At the moment we have a float of £300, which means we have to top it up very regularly, increasing the limits of that top means we have to spend less time topping it up. So the process that goes through, it still goes through subcommittee, through to the finance committee, so in terms of the due diligence, nothing changes, it's just the offside.
So are we prepared to?
Mr. Mayor, may I ask, is the petty cash action cash? Sorry, any apologies. Mr. Mayor. May I ask, is the petty cash actually cash, which may seem odd in this day and age when most payments are by credit or debit card and therefore easier to control?
We don't do an awful lot of payments by credit cards to some, and there are central rules covering that. We have moved over from signing checks, which we used to do quite a lot. We've now moved over to an electronic payment system. So what happens is there are about 4 or 5 authorised signatures on our online, and 2 of us have to electronically sign the lease. The bulk of payments is done that way. Credit cards are used sometimes for things where it's simpler to order things over the phone. There are processes through. So the actual amount of cash, physical cash, is small.
Not really, Mr. Mayor. So we've got kind of a suite of payment options essentially to allow us to purchase things in the most efficient way. So corporate card, for example, we do purchase through an Amazon business account, so that enables us to use that corporate card for that. There's 2 corporate card holders, myself and the responsible finance officer, but Councillor Butterworth, it is cash. It's fine. Thank you.
Can we then approve the amendment of the financial regulations set out in paragraph 3.5? Thank you very much. Move on to 9.7, which is the review of the council business plan. And Mr. Chambers is going to do a presentation, so which will be on there again. So switch around. Sorry about this. Okay, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So each year we bring a presentation on the annual report to this council meeting, just to set out some of the achievements that have come in the previous year and some of the remaining items that are left out to achieve. So you would have seen some of this over the recent weeks, particularly at the town meeting. So as you know, we've got 6 priority themes. I'm not going to go in detail in all of them, but just highlight some of the things that we're particularly proud of. So there's our budget. I think we've seen that many a time now. The thing I would flag on that is the commercial income work, which is increasing, and actually means that we continue to do more about increasing precepts. Harpenden Neighbourhood Plan, particularly big achievement for us in the last year. The referendum in February was a huge success, and it's started to play out pretty well. Sorry, there's a really bad transition on this, which the slides are. I've got 10 seconds to speak on each one of them. So essentially, successes on the neighbourhood plan. There's 3 things I just wanted to highlight. So back in May, the government used our neighbourhood plan as part of their update. The government used our neighbourhood plan as part of their neighbourhood planning update for that particular month, which is actually a pretty good achievement. There's one every month that's put forward, so we're pretty pleased with that. The sustainability section that we have has attracted a lot of attention from various centres for sustainability and environmental groups, and we've been able to showcase and share some of our policies, and in particular people have been saying to us, well, how did you get that policy through? What was the inspectors or examiners' reaction to this particular policy in the plan? So we're particularly proud of that. And most recently, in fact this week, and we shared it in the information bulletin, was the appeal decision that was rejected and utilised the neighbourhood plan as some of the reasons why that was rejected. So that's a really strong case to show that the neighbourhood plan can and will have a big impact locally. We've increased our social media presence again over the last 12 months, and we are pretty heavily involved in Facebook and sharing what we're up to and engaging with different people. We've had a real big push for Instagram of late, where we are trying to get out some kind of more visual representation of what we do on Instagram. If you're not familiar, it's all about pictures and images. We've got 2 outstanding projects that we're working on at the moment. One is the website review, which Corporate Policy and Finance recently had a look at the timetable of. So we'll be bringing forward some recommendations to CPF later this year. And the second one that's not completed there yet is the submission to the Local Council Award Scheme, which is essentially an accreditation scheme for our sector, which we are due to submit probably around January. Investing in our assets, here's just investing in our assets, so play area improvements. Right at the start of the last year we completed Marcus Lane, which has been hugely popular. As well as working on our own assets, we've helped other organisations that are prominent in the town to invest in theirs. So this is the Cricket Club Pavilion, which is now open. We actually secured as a town council £50,000 in Sport England grants for them to go towards a project of around about £30,000, and supported them through the planning application process, given that the pavilion is obviously on the town council land. It's not all play areas and pavilions. We also do some of the perhaps less exciting but super important stuff around pathways. So again, we've increased our improvements across the town centre of parks, both making them wider and more accessible and bringing them back to their original widths, and I think they're a great improvement on what we've seen historically. And of course we've got Westfield Affordable Housing Scheme. So just to give you a quick update on this and a reminder, so we're working with Warwick Housing Group on this. We are currently going through our legal teams with securing and finalising contracts. Once the sale of the land is complete, we'll receive £2.65 million capital receipt, and we're expecting the completion of the sale at the end of August. You may have noticed, if you're around the area or indeed had a look at the information bulletin, there's some work going on the site at the moment where we've put up some barriers, which is all around the wildlife, ensuring that we can look after the snail populations that are currently on the site. This is really kind of turning a bit of an unfortunate problem that we had into a positive. So unfortunately we had to call the air raid shelters. However, we took it as a positive step of trying to document the fact that they were there in the first place with some interpretation boards, and we also did the 4D scanning of them. So using the website you can go on and you can walk through as to what the air raid shelters used to look like. The last project under investing in our assets that we've got to complete this year is the storage depot project, which is part of the leisure and cultural development at the back, which once complete will give our maintenance team, our in-house team, a space to work from, a place for us to store our stuff, which we don't have at all at the moment. We essentially hire a couple of cabins in various different places, so that will be huge for our internal maintenance operation. Next one around modernisation. This is very much an internally focused priority. Two key things that we flag here. You mentioned this in terms of our new finance system. So this has meant that we've actually been able to take a step to make back payments now and move away from cheques, which is a very positive thing. And linked to that, on the same software, we've upgraded our booking and facilities management software, which enables us to have finance and facilities system that now talk to each other and help us be efficient. Park Hall continues to be a very positive asset for us in terms of generating commercial income, and it's very popular amongst the users. So the figures you've got on the screen there is the income that we achieved last year. We're at very high capacity in terms of the real bookable sessions, and you'll notice in the last point there, 96% of hires say their booking experience was excellent, which we're particularly proud of. We do ask all our hirers what we can improve, and over the years, Community Services Committee and CPF have approved new additions to Park Hall that kind of increase the value to the hall. Things like Wi-Fi, improved chairs and furniture. Commercial income. You've heard me talk about this slide lots of times. I was just going to flag one thing that we've got outstanding in this year, and that's our ice cream concession. So we currently have a contract with an ice cream provider. So the gentleman that just opposite the Common, they're able to trade from a number of sites at any time of the year, but also during events, so they can kind of prime positions. So we'll be going out to a tender later this year for a refresh of that particular contract for starting 2020. Commons and Greens, this slide is just about allotments, recognising that we work in partnership with East Harpenden and South Harpenden. We invested £18,000 in allotment sites last year ourselves through repairs and maintenance and general improvements. And the allotments are kind of overseen by our working party, through annual inspection and two other meetings of the working party. Looks to agree the repairs and maintenance priorities each year. We've completed the second year of our 3-year Commons and Greens education programme. So our colleague Karen has been leading on this whilst Heidi has been on maternity leave. Heidi actually returns next month, so we're looking forward to seeing what Heidi can do to take forward the third year of the education programme. So far we've engaged around about 2,200 people in the 2 years that it's run. The number of volunteering hours has been huge, particularly in the last year. 291 hours of volunteering. If we were to try to quantify that in terms of if we were paying someone to do the work volunteers were doing, then that would be an absolutely huge figure. I mentioned Heidi coming back. The big focus on year 3 of this programme is around accredited opportunities. So we are an accredited AQA training centre now, which means that we can go out and offer placements and things like the Duke of Edinburgh. So they can do students can do some great stuff in and around the town and get accredited for it. So we're particularly proud of that. As I say, Heidi is our accredited trainer, and when she gets back, she'll be taking that forward. The other part of the accreditation is a lead volunteer scheme. So where we've got volunteers working across all of our different assets, training them up to become lead volunteers so they can lead sessions themselves, which means that we don't necessarily need officers out there leading sessions, and we can focus on other things and get more people involved. So that's particularly positive as well, we should see. Batford Springs, so we've continued to invest in Batford Springs. We've now spent or invested over £40 million since we took the ownership of the District Council. The big project that we've got coming up is Boardwalk, which we are very close to being able to take forward. We've now secured an Environment Agency permit. Anybody who's familiar with Environment Agency, it's not easy to get a permit. All sorts of things you have to jump through. And at the end of this week, we submit a funding bid to Veolia to fund around about £75,000 of the project cost. The project is about £95,000. So we're hopeful in early September we'll receive confirmation that we've got that particular grant. It's a stage 2 application, so we've already gone through the first stage. So that's very positive. Lydekker Park, we've had a strong focus on delivering the management plan there. Some great improvements already, secured the green flag status, improved some accessibility with some of the handrails and pathways, and you'll be aware that we've got the Lydekker Pond refurbishment work, which is due to start, will be completed in November time. The Community Services Committee have just approved the preferred contractor for that, so we're working with them to kind of mobilise and get them starting the work in September. Harpenden Common Management Plan, well, the only thing I've just kind of flagged on here, our big focus is partly been delivering the management plan, but within that our tree stock, and you'll note that there's an item later on the agenda regarding that. And the last theme is around vibrant and active communities, and it just recognises that we continue to deliver large-scale events across the town. We generally attract around 18,000 to 20,000 people to our 2 carnivals, which is a huge number of people. In the context of Christmas Carnival in particular, with a busy road going through the centre of town, it is a bit of a logistical nightmare, but we always manage to pull it off, and everybody seems to have a great time each year.
Yeah, I think it's just worth saying, one of the reasons we do this is to help the viability of the high street. Because it brings in thousands of people, and if you walk through the town during the Christmas Carnival, you'll see that all the pubs and restaurants and so forth are full, and that's the idea. But as well as being, a very interesting event, a lot of fun for children, parents, and people come from far and wide. One of the things we've learned over the years is that they really do require very good lights display. If anything goes wrong with that, there's a massive amount of criticism that happens.
As well as the large-scale events, we've got the small-scale community events, which we've kind of increased the programme of in the last every 18 months. So there's things like the Teddy Bears Picnic, which we've always done, but we introduced Open Theatre recently, and last year we debuted Music in Lydica, which was actually targeted at a slightly different audience. Those are all running again this year. Well, so again, Open Theatre is, and that's been replaced by a Wild Fest, which is coming up very soon, which promises to be very exciting. Music in Lydica, we are rolling out again, very popular. What we're adding to this time is we're going to be using the Hartland hoppers to go around and pick some people up. So we are currently engaging places like Lee Springs to try and get some of their residents along to these things who otherwise wouldn't be able to. So utilising that kind of social value of investing in the hop-up, which is part of the agreement that we've got up and provide us with the hop-up and drivers to allow us to do that throughout the year. So typically this will be doing that. Monthly farmers market continues to be a success, particularly when it's a nice day, like the weekend when it feels particularly busy. We do still have expansion plans. We are still working through trying to get the necessary permissions from the county in order to get the road closure to roll it out into the small road between Lloyd and Barnsley. Hopefully that will be achieved this year. And the last one I'll just flag there is around independent businesses. So we continue to showcase our independent businesses. We continue to meet with them on a regular basis to try to do what we can to make their businesses viable. That's a really quick run through that. Very happy.
Any questions?
Sorry.
Okay, so just noting that. Yes, please.
Just one comment. I'd like to congratulate two sets of people for what has been an outstanding year. The first is the former administration, some of whose members are here, many of whom are not, on the hard work they did to make all this happen. And secondly, and by no means second, in fact it could be first, Mr. Cheever and the members of his team, they did an outstanding job in developing the plan based on political priorities, and then implemented it incredibly successfully to the legislature.
Okay, so now move on to item 8, which is the timetable for developing approval. I think we tend to do 3 years.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor says, this will be our second business plan. In terms of the duration, that will be something that will be a decision for council a bit down the line, because you may wish to look at a different duration.
I think the report's pretty self-explanatory. Are there any comments on this effort?
I'd just like to make a point that there has in fact been a significant input into the business plan, and it happened in May, and many thousands of people voted for it. And my suggestion to members is that that is what drives the business plan for the next 3 years, not quick surveys in the term. However, I think that given the general business plan is going to be driven by the outcome of the May election, and I'm sure everyone will have input which they would wish to give into that. I also would like to say that as part of the offers on the table to residents, one of them was that we were having a smallish, comparatively, influx of funds later in the year, and that this administration would look to setting up a survey, and we would ask people to put in their ideas for specific projects that would benefit the town, and we would then ask the town to vote on those ideas. And so instead of a general community engagement for
for the business plan, which actually I think the business plan should be led by the town council, because we have done a survey on what people want, and that is what we will implement. I think we should be doing a survey on what projects should be done. And as an example, you've seen some of the projects there, and there are many more which people have been bringing to my attention over the last few months. And the first stage is we ask them what projects would they like to see to benefit the town, and perhaps we set a list of objectives for that. And secondly, we then ask them to vote on the projects, and we would set in advance a top level budget and a set of priorities that these projects would have to meet. And I think that would be the people I've spoken to, clearly the residents liked it because it was part of the manifesto, from the Conservative manifesto. Everyone I've spoken to about it likes it a lot, because it means that they get the opportunity to put forward their ideas and their pets. You know, some groups within the town have things that want to do with some people from the town, and I think that would be something that would be of great benefit to both the town council and to the town in general. So I put that forward as a suggestion.
My question has been answered, thank you.
Can I make a couple of observations to about that? I have concerns. We've got 16 town councillors whose primary responsibility is to talk to local residents and find out what they want. I'm very concerned about a survey which is likely to have very low turnout and be led by a small number of not very representative people for Harpenden, and I think in any sort of political decision we see that that's often very dangerous. So I am very concerned about a survey. I'm not saying it shouldn't be part of a wider brief, but the notion we run our business plan based on a survey of what will be a very small number of people, as people of any involved in marketing know, is if you get information from the survey, you end up getting information about what people who like filling in surveys want. So I have concerns about this when we take this forward.
Yeah, I think what we'll do probably is set up a working party, and I think it's in principle. I think in principle it's a good idea to ask the residents what they like. Rather than us just decide tomorrow. Second, Marianne.
If I can, am I okay to say something? I would just like to say I completely agree with you, and I would like to moreover say that if you're having written many surveys, I could get people to agree to pretty much anything I wanted, depending on how I wrote the survey.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to note with the community engagement section whether there will be any opportunity for specific engagement with younger residents in Harpenden, perhaps through the local secondary schools or other sort of community groups that might exist. I'm just wondering if that's a possibility.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make as well.
Mr. Mayor, obviously one hasn't discussed in detail what might or might happen to the money that comes from the sale of the site, in that I gather it hasn't even been exchanged yet. So many are split between cup and lip. And that's what I'm saying. But my view is probably contrary to what many people would suggest. My reaction is we do not spend the capital. The capital should be maintained. We should invest the capital. Another decision as to how it's invested, different discussion. But with that capital, the income of that capital is what is then used for the common good, rather than the capital itself. That means over the many years in the future, there'll be a sum of money that can be used for items out with money that can be raised by the town council, the precinct. That would be my situation.
Yeah.
Not spend the capital, create income, spend the income.
Yeah, I've got quite a bit of sympathy with that, because I'm inclined to invest, but there are things we can do. So, for example, we could invest in more car parking, which would cost income. That's one idea.
if that's the scenario, then that's a totally different question altogether. But my initial idea was, say, after agents' fees, lawyers' costs, Gallen is also a sum of money possibly to go to the allotments. If there was, say, 2 million plus left over, say, we pretend, you could generate 60 to 80,000 a year off that, linked inflation-free, effectively. Now, that's a lot of money to spend each year on other projects. That would be my starting point.
Is that inflation-linked yields?
No, I'm thinking of investment trusts. In particular, you can produce a range of investment trusts that have produced increased dividends the last 40, 50 years. So I'd be suggesting investments such as that. Sorry? City of London, there's a whole range of them. Let's say I have some knowledge of them.
Yeah, so do I.
I would find it very difficult to say to the people of Harpenden, who many of whom get on a train, go down to London and invest billions of pounds of money, that we know better than them how to invest their money. So for me, when that money arrives, there's only two choices. We either invest most of it in substantive projects that people want, or we return it to them as it's their money.
The distinction between capital and growth.
In that case, we're very clear we must invest it, rather than invest it on their behalf.
All right, well, we believe this is it's been pointed out earlier, we haven't got the money so let's not get carried away. We'll keep the number with you.
Now I do have a question. My question is really, what is the process for bringing up our IDs? I know that there's 2 committees that can bring IDs forward, but how do we all bring these IDs forward beyond, like, the chat that we just had?
I think in the first instance, they will be submitted to the town clerk.
Okay.
They will feed them into the road. So we'll keep all this under review. We'll bring up another item.
Yes,
as to how we're going to get ideas for investment. Spend the money on the projects. Okay. Can we finish this up? So there are 2 things which we need to approve. It's on page 49. 2.1.1, approve the timetable for developing and approving the business plan. And 2.1.2, agree the approach to community engagement set out in the paragraph.
Just to point out that in terms of the approach, I've said that I don't agree with that.
Apart from that, all in favour? Okay, thank you. Do it again.
I think you should split these 2 items.
Split it. All right. We'll split it. Sorry, we'll split the 2 items. So 2.1.1, approve the timetable for developing and approving the business plan. All in favour of that one? That one's unanimous. And then 2.1.2, agree the approach to community engagement set out in paragraph 3.7.
Clarity. So, as a councillor, are you saying that it's the approach to community engagement that's set out in that timetable that you're against, or are you against any community engagement? The reason I ask that is because the timetable for developing this is very tight. So we would need to bring some stuff through to the Corporate Policy and Finance and the communication under our terms of reference in September. So I would need a steer on that question.
Personally, I think the community, this council runs the council, and I would agree, which is what you've said. And we have been elected to run the council, and if we don't start by saying, okay, you've elected us, and what do you want us to do? We've told them what we'll do, that's what we'll go through.
Any other comments on that?
Yes, so Mr Mayor, if there's no alternative recommendation to the board, then we'll set to decide on that.
Right. Onward to 9.9. Tree planting. This may be a bit controversial. Do you want to introduce this one? Maybe we will break the paper and just highlight.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, there is just two simple things I just want to point out really, and that is just to reiterate paragraphs 3.1 and 3.2. So firstly, that we own a significant number of trees, and we have in place what we've described as a proactive tree management policy, which aims to enhance our tree population and for the good of the town.
How many trees have we got?
Yeah, so
Rough numbers.
we're thinking around about 10,000 trees. So the knock-on effect of that, and why we're kind of obliged to point this out to you in 3.2, is that by taking a proactive approach, we quite often are faced with tricky decisions, because we have health and safety surveys that come back that at times, as they have done in this report, recommend carrying out certain action. They're often high profile and they have significant community interest, so that's very much the knock-on effect of having a proactive approach. If you're reactive, not surveying, you don't know what's out there. That's the whole challenge.
Yes, because it's a tree that is there. Very well.
Mr Mayor, in some ways, yes. So if we were to carry out a survey and we were flagged that there was something wrong with it and then something happened that would impact somebody, we would potentially be liable for that. There is an element if you're not aware of something, and actually there are ways around liability in that sense, but our proactive approach, when issues are highlighted, then we need to be shown to consider it. You don't have to take action, but the council has to consider what action we should be taking there.
So, it looks as though the immediate decisions are the three trees inevitably that's going to attract a lot of public attention. How dare you cut down the increase by a trees? I think it's probably a communication thing to do. We could possibly get something into the local newspapers, certainly local businesses, publicise what they do at the time. It's obvious from this difficulty is to get rid of all of these things will be extremely costly, and I wonder whether it's really necessary. The area between Redwall Lane roundabout coming south, that large area before it becomes a common private ownership, it's basically wilderness. So if there are trees around the outside which might fall over either on the road or then I think we could do something about that. But if you've got trees in the middle, you can fall over, nothing's there, does it matter? This is a large number of trees.
Yes, correct. Yeah, so in terms of that particular element of City of Hartlepool, we'll be bringing a report through to Community Services Committee in September, the committee that oversees this. The reason why we're taking it to September is because we need to understand some of the cost implications. We are looking at, in those two areas, we are looking at 350 trees. Just to give you an idea of the significance of the number.
If I may, and forgive the possible ignorance of the question, but does the council replant 1 for 1, or do they replant 2 for 1, as in the policy set out in the next plan?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So because it's not a development, we're not bound by the tree policy 2 for 1. However, we do commit, historically, committed to replanting 1 for 1 of appropriate species.
So, any other comments?
Yes, I just wondered whether there are evaluations taking place in other trees, in other sites owned by the Town Council, which might be in areas of stress, which he says is reversible, and not simply strain, which is not reversible, to ensure that perhaps some trees which are on Town Council land can be saved as opposed to having to chop them down to start again.
Yes, so it's a very good question, Mr. Mayor. So essentially, this is where the benefit of our proactive approach comes in. Is actually by being proactive, by having regular surveys, we're enabled to spot things as early as possible. In the case of these particular areas, this would be classed under our tree policy as Zone 3, which ordinarily we wouldn't survey regularly. So we've been proactive in surveying it, and of course we've found the issue. So we wouldn't naturally have picked it up in these areas because they're not one of the first two zones, 1 or 2, which is areas of higher footfall.
I'm not by any means a tree expert, but I'm just wondering if I'm not talking about particular individual trees, and it goes without saying that I don't want a tree or a big branch to fall down on anyone, but is there a bit of a case of this report is because we've gone, if you pay someone to go looking for things, you know, they will often find them. If you go for, I don't know, like a health MOT or something, you might find something which would never have been a problem for 30 years. And, I don't know, yeah, are we going to be chopping down some trees that if we had left them and hadn't studied them, would still be there perfectly happily in 20 years' time? That's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say on that is that the consultants that we use are of the very highest standard nationally. So they're competent in questions, but the point to make is correct. Essentially, every tree will die at some point. We've highlighted some of these that have got issues that have got an accelerated death, if you like. But it is a question that we can't put a time frame on.
Mr. At the moment, we're just to clarify, we're not actually deciding the fate of the City of Hartlepool. We're just voting